We will discuss three topics today: the election of new chairman and deputy chairman of Pakistan Senate, and how the Imran Khan's PTI became successful in winning both the seats. Secondly, the end game in Afghanistan seems to be near, and there are major developments. We'll discuss with that. And thirdly, the deadly coronavirus third wave is here in Pakistan via England. Unfortunately, not enough care has been taken in stopping travel between UK and Pakistan. We'll discuss all those in a minute. Welcome to This Week with Ajaz Haque. It is Sunday today, March the 14th, 2021. We will discuss three topics today: the election of new chairman and deputy chairman of Pakistan Senate, and how the Imran Khan's PTI became successful in winning both the seats. Secondly, the end game in Afghanistan seems to be near, and there are major developments. We'll discuss with that. And thirdly, the deadly coronavirus third wave is here in Pakistan via England. Unfortunately, not enough care has been taken in stopping travel between UK and Pakistan. We'll discuss all those in a minute. First of all, a major upset for the opposition, the Pakistan Democratic Movement, who had fielded Mr. Yusuf Raza Gilani as the candidate for Senate chairman. And they had hoped that they will win this position and take control of the Senate, the upper house. However, the government's nominee, Mr. Sadiq Sanjarani from Balochistan, he won the election even though government had 48 votes and the opposition had 50 votes. It seems that some of the opposition senators deliberately spoiled their ballots as they did not approve of Mr. Yusuf Raza Gilani, and the suspicious fingers are pointing at PMLN, but one never knows. The more interesting thing was the deputy chairman's election, which Mr. Mirza Afridi from the northern areas won 54 to 44 votes, a clear 10-vote lead, and again defeating the opposition candidate who was a JUI nominee. And again, fingers are being pointed at the two major parties for not supporting the candidate, each other's candidates. It seems there's a fair amount of distrust between the various PDM parties, and as a result, they have not supported each other where they needed to be. So the celebrations that they had on March the 3rd of Mr. Yusuf Raza Gilani's win as a senator have dissipated now and disappeared, and it's turned into doom and gloom for the opposition, and they're not talking about a long march on March 26th. However, they need to sort out first as to who did not vote for them and why. Anyway, it's a good thing that things have settled, and now the government can get on with its work, and it should. A lot of legislation is pending, which can clear the National Assembly as PTI government has majority. And now in Senate, they can probably have support of one or two senators and pass the various bills that are pending. So hopefully things will subside, and focus will be on running the government and in bringing the cost of living down for the general public. And hopefully the opposition can now also bite the bullet and sit down with the government and support the various constitutional amendments that need to be passed, especially regarding the secret ballot, doing away the secret ballots. I think that will benefit the opposition as well as the government. Now, major developments in the Afghan peace process. It seems that Mr. Ashraf Ghani's government have been dragging its heels in coming to a settlement with Taliban on the transition. And so the American Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, wrote a stiff letter to the President of Afghanistan, Mr. Ashraf Ghani, that they have to make serious progress. Otherwise, Taliban will rule Kabul, and they will have nowhere to run. Not quite in those words, but fairly strong words. So it seems that the Biden administration, after reviewing the agreement with Taliban, they've come to a decision that it's sensible to continue with it rather than break the agreement, and I think that's a very wise move. Now, Islamabad became the major center of attraction for all the activities. The American representative of Afghanistan, Mr. Zalmay Khalilzad, was in Islamabad, and so was the U.S. General in charge in Afghanistan, and UK's defense chief was also there, and they all met with the Chief of Army Staff, General Qamar Javed Bajwa, and they had several meetings. And more importantly, it's reported that there was nearly an hour-long phone call between Antony Blinken, the U.S. Secretary of State, and General Qamar Javed Bajwa, in which, and they were both assisted by people from both sides. And in this phone call, they discussed the various aspects of how Afghan peace process should move forward. Pakistan also made its concerns known that India does not have a place on the table in Afghan peace talks because the terrorist attack coming into Pakistan from Afghanistan are by Taliban, who are trained and financed by the Indian government. And it now seems that the process will move forward. Moscow is holding a conference in which the Afghan government, the Taliban, Pakistan Foreign Minister, Iranian Foreign Minister, Turkish Foreign Minister, and the US Foreign Minister will all attend, and Chinese Foreign Minister, they will attend and make an effort to get the dialogue going between the Afghan government and the Taliban. Thereafter, the United States is arranging for another peace conference in Turkey in April, and in that peace conference, the objective is to reach to a point where both the Afghan government and the Taliban come to an agreement on an interim government, and this interim government will then hold elections in the country, in Afghanistan, and then a new government will come into force after the elections. It seems that foot dragging by Mr. Ashraf Ghani has now almost come to an end, or at least his choices have become limited, and US is now, after spending $1 trillion and deaths of thousands of Afghan soldiers and citizens and thousands of US and NATO soldiers, they've come to a decision that it's time to end this war. And I think that's a very sensible decision. This war has gone on too long, too much money and too much blood has been spilt, and totally unnecessarily in my view. The war was won in the first 3 months. The US could have wrapped it up after that. But the insistence of Mr. George W. Bush, backed by the defense industry in the US, they prolonged the war. And as a result, the US is now, even though they've lost the war, but they are getting a safe exit. And we will probably not see the scenes that we saw at the end of Vietnam War when the US had to run for their life, or the soldiers had to run for their life. So hopefully these peace conferences will achieve results, and there will be a settlement in Afghanistan, and it's time. It's been a long time, and Pakistan has suffered greatly because of the Afghan war, as its transit routes are blocked. And now with the advent of Gwadar port, there's interest from Uzbekistan, from Turkmenistan. They all want to use the Gwadar port and have the land routes open. So I think there's a fair amount of trade will start very soon once the Afghan situation settles. And finally, the third wave of COVID is here in Pakistan. Partial lockdowns are starting again, and this unfortunately has come from the United Kingdom, and hopefully it can be controlled very soon. The good news is that the vaccination is now going apace, and those over 60 are getting vaccinated, and there are some centers where they can just walk in, show their ID card and get their vaccination. So that's a good thing. And this is the Sinopharm Chinese, which is considered #1 vaccination for COVID. And finally, the roundup of financial markets. S&P 500 was up 2.7% in this week, closing at 3943. The S&P TSX, the Toronto Stock Exchange, was up 2.5%, closing at 18,851. NASDAQ closed up 3% at 13,199. And I'm sorry, I think I've got that figure wrong, my apologies. And Shanghai closed 1.4% down at 3453. Mumbai Sensex closed 1% up at 50,792. The Pakistan stock market took a dive 4.5% during the week, although on the last day of the trading, it shot up by 1,009 points. It closed at 43,788. Bitcoin has crossed 60,000 US dollars. Now, last week I'd mentioned the price for Bitcoin, and a friend from Canada contacted me and says that the price appears to be wrong, and indeed it was, because for some reason Yahoo.com quotes the Bitcoin price in Canadian dollars. So the price I quoted then was in Canadian dollars. However, the US dollar price has just crossed the $60,000. That's all for the week, and I'll see you next week. Have a wonderful week, and thank you very much for watching this video, and please do subscribe. Thank you.